All right, so it's official. Bilt 2.0 is here, and the reviews right out of the gate so far are mostly negative, so let's talk about it. Now, this video is just going to be my initial thoughts on all this stuff because I was invited out to the Bilt 2.0 event, so as you can see here, I'm not in my normal YouTube studio, but I did want to get my thoughts out here as fast as I possibly could because there's a lot to cover here. So I'm not going to focus on so much the minor details, all the facts and stuff, the multipliers. We'll go through that really quickly. But what I really wanted to share here are my thoughts and opinions about these overall changes because this is a massive update and Bilt 2.0 is very different than what Bilt 1.0 looked like. What I would actually say is that the old Bilt program was a no-brainer program because you could get that Bilt MasterCard, earn 1x points on your rent, and pay no transaction fees as long as you use that card 5 times in a statement period. But whereas that old program was a no-brainer, this new 2.0 program is a brainer, meaning that it's kind of confusing and complicated for how you're going to get value out of this new program. There's definitely going to be some math here that people are going to be forced to do with this new Bilt program in terms of earning points on the rent or their mortgage, as well as earning points on non-rent and non-mortgage spend. And so I think Bilt's biggest hurdle here, outside of those negative comments on Reddit and stuff like that, that they're totally justified, so I get it. But Bilt's biggest hurdle is really going to be overcoming the complication that these numbers have for people who just might not be numbers oriented. So with some of that initial stuff out of the way here, let's go ahead and jump right into things by talking about these 3 new cards and what benefits, what features they're going to have. But I will keep things pretty quick with that stuff because there's a ton of other articles and videos out there that you guys have probably already seen that walks through it. But then after that, we're really going to dive into some of my other opinions here, both positive and negative, as well as some other math that I think people aren't really talking about that much with this card. And then, like I said, this is just my initial thoughts here. So I'm trying to be very middle ground. I'm trying to give the positives and the negatives, and we're going to make a full video eventually at some point in the future walking through the entire new Bilt 2.0 program once I'm back in my studio. So jumping over to Bilt's website here, we have first the Bilt Blue card, which has no annual fee, and that's going to be their baseline option for people who want to avoid that annual fee. Then next, we have the Bilt Obsidian card coming in with a $95 annual fee. And then finally, the Bilt Palladium card, their top tier option at $495 per year. Now jumping over to the points multipliers on these 3 cards, I'm actually going to avoid that first line there under each one of these where it says up to 1x points on rent and mortgage. And that's because personally, after I've looked through this stuff and I've gone through the information, I think earning points on rent and mortgage is something to be considered completely separately now. And so we'll talk about that in just a minute. So for my initial thoughts here, let's just ignore that earning points on housing stuff and just focus on these cards compared to the competition and see what their multipliers are and how they hold up in the marketplace. So for the no annual fee Bilt Blue card, that's going to be 1x points on everyday spend. Obviously, it doesn't sound that great on the surface since that's kind of the baseline for most credit cards nowadays, just earning 1% or 1x point per dollar. But where things really get interesting is when you go up to the $95 Bilt Obsidian card. That's where you start to see some more valuable multipliers at 3x points on your choice of dining or groceries. So you get to choose between one of those categories, and that's going to be 3x points on one of those things for up to 25K per year, or at least for groceries, it says right here, up to 25K in spend per year, earning 3x. On this card, you can also earn 2x points on travel and 1x points on other everyday spend. And then over on the Bilt Palladium card, that higher top tier annual fee card at $495 per year, it becomes a very powerful potential Venture X competitor, earning 2x points per dollar on everyday spend. Now, obviously, with these premium cards that have an annual fee, you do hope that there's some credits that can help to potentially offset at least some or all of that fee. So obviously, with the no annual fee card, there's just no annual credits there. But then for the Bilt Obsidian card and the $95 annual fee, you do get up to $100 in Bilt travel hotel credits, and that's going to be split up into twice per year, a $50 statement credit. So you have one of those $50 credits for the first half of the year, and then another one for the second half of the year. However, one thing I want to point out here that is kind of a negative in my opinion, and it's not super clear unless you read the fine print, is that travel credit, getting $50 in the first half of the year or $50 in the second half of the year, those do have to be made with qualifying bookings. And it says in the fine print here that you need to make hotel bookings that are 2 nights or longer through the Bilt travel portal. So again, will some people be able to get normal value from this credit? And the answer is yes, but at the same time, it is kind of limiting, and you do have to read the fine print there because it's not as easy to use as it might seem on the surface. And then moving over to the $495 Bilt Palladium card, there's going to be 2 annual benefits here you have to take note of. So that is going to be $200 of Bilt Cash, which we'll talk more about Bilt Cash in just a minute. But that is going to be issued annually. And what they also point out here is that up to $100 of Bilt Cash is what rolls over from one calendar year to the next. So keep that in mind here as well. And then similar to the Obsidian card, there is going to be a $400 Bilt travel hotel credit here as well, applied twice per year. So $200 first half of the year, $200 second half of the year, And again, if you read the fine print, you do have to make qualified eligible bookings here at a 2-night minimum. So it's not as easy to use as some other credits out there on the market, and you just have to take note of that. Now, speaking of Bilt Cash, let's go over that next here because that is gonna be another massive change here in the whole Bilt ecosystem. So what you'll see is that all three of these cards earn 4% Bilt Cash on purchases, all purchases, excluding rent and mortgage payments. Now, this is where I think it's gonna get confusing for the average person or beginners with this stuff because not only are you earning points on your spend with a Bilt card, you're also earning cash back in the form of Bilt Cash at this time. Now, that cash back is not the same as like cash back you can deposit into your bank account, but it should be somewhat close to a 1-to-1 ratio for exchanging that Bilt Cash for other things. Like, for example, redeeming for statement credits on Lyft rides or for fitness classes or booking hotels through Bilt Travel. There's some other examples that Bilt gave, and there's going to be some other stuff in the near future that they're going to be allowing people to exchange their Bilt Cash for as well. But the one thing that Bilt is also going to allow you to do with that Bilt Cash is essentially exchange it for unlocking points on your mortgage or rent. And I'll explain this with some math that I have scribbled down on a piece of paper because, again, this is very unscripted here and I'll be more organized with an official video. But basically, the number that you want to keep in mind here in terms of exchanging Bilt Cash for points on your rent or mortgage is that $30 of Bilt Cash is equal to unlocking 1,000 points on your rent or mortgage. Now, I also wanted to quickly mention that there are going to finally be some welcome bonuses on these cards, with really the top tier Palladium card getting the best welcome offer. But on the Bilt Blue card with no annual fee, you're getting $100 of Bilt Cash as a sign-up bonus. You just apply, get approved, and then you're going to get that. For the Bilt Obsidian card coming in at $95 per year, $200 Bilt Cash when you apply and get approved. So again, no spend attached to that. And that's sort of an initial way to build up that Bilt Cash balance. And then over on the Bilt Palladium card, $495 card, you're gonna get $300 of Bilt Cash when you apply and get approved, along with the opportunity to get a 50,000 Bilt point bonus plus gold status. So after you spend $4,000 on everyday purchases in the first 3 months, you're going to unlock those two things there as well. So this is the first true Bilt welcome bonus we've seen for earning Bilt points. Now, in being here at this event and talking to people here at Bilt, there does seem to be some confusion going around online as to who's actually eligible for these bonuses. So if you're converting from Bilt 1.0 to Bilt 2.0, does the language make it seem like it actually excludes you from getting this bonus? Maybe it does, but they made it very clear everyone is going to be eligible for this bonus. So me, like I said, I upgraded to the Bilt Palladium card. I am going to be able to get 50,000 Bilt points after 4K of spend in the first 3 months, as well as anybody out there who's a newcomer to the Bilt program. Now, outside of all that stuff, there's some other features and additional benefits that I'm really gonna have to dig into for more in-depth review of this stuff. But what you will see if you scroll down on their website is that each one of these cards has no foreign transaction fees, which is nice. Each one's also gonna have a cellular wireless telephone protection benefits. That's kind of cool too. And there's some other travel protections, with the Bilt Palladium card having the best protections and the best additional features. Again, there's a lot of stuff that I really have to dig into here, and this is just my initial thoughts. All right, so let's go ahead now and just close up my laptop, and I'm gonna jump over to a desk view where I've written down some math with an example here of earning points using the Bilt Palladium card. 2x points per dollar on everything non-rent and non-mortgage, as well as 4% Bilt Cash on those transactions that you can then use to unlock points on your mortgage or rent payments. Because if you can understand how this math works, then you start to see why there are some people that do see some positives in getting a card like this, but you can also see why it's complicated and why people are frustrated. All right, now again, this is a very spontaneous video, so excuse my bad handwriting here. You can roast me in the comments. But if we said that our rent was $3,000, what Bilt made clear at the event was that there are going to be no fees charged for that rent. So I think this is what people were seeing on Reddit, was that if you started to charge rent or your mortgage through this stuff, you're automatically getting charged the 3% transaction fee. That's not the case. What they said is you could still run that rent or that mortgage through Bilt. You just won't get the points unless you have spend on the Bilt card earning Bilt Cash to then convert that Bilt Cash into actual points. And so we'll walk through this here. But so before, basically, if your rent was $3,000, you would earn 1x Bilt point per dollar on that, so 3,000 points per month, with no transaction fees, no questions asked, as long as you made 5 transactions in a statement period. That's gone now under the old Bilt program, so the new Bilt program works like this. If your rent was $3,000, there's no fees paid upfront by you on that rent. However, if you want to earn up to 3,000 points, essentially up to 1x back, you'll see that wording on Bilt's website, up to 1x on your rent and mortgage. You have to put spend on one of those 3 Bilt cards to earn Bilt Cash to unlock up to 1x points on that. So here's how it works. $3,000 of rent spend, 0 fees. Let's say you then put $1,500 of non-rent spend. We're going to assume you have the top Palladium card because that's what you're going to see myself and a lot of other people getting because we want a good 2x catch-all card that transfers to Hyatt and transfers to Alaska because Bilt points, by far now, this is not even something that's really arguable. You ask anybody, Bilt points are the most valuable. There's no questioning that. That has not changed. The transfer partners have not changed. So that's good. So $1,500 of non-rent spend earning 2x points on the Palladium card. That's going to be 3,000 Bilt points. At the same time, you're going to get 4% Bilt Cash. So if you do 4% times $1,500 of spend, that's $60 in Bilt Cash per month. Again, this is just like each month could be different, but as a 2x catch-all card, I think that's a pretty good estimation for what someone could spend on non-rent spend. Again, you're going to unlock points on your rent or mortgage here. So the ratio is that $30 in Bilt Cash is equal to 1,000 points. Now that ratio scales up and down, so you don't have to do, it's not incremental. So it's like you don't just get like every $30 is 1,000 points. If you only have $15 of Bilt Cash, that would convert into 500 points. Or if you have $45 of Bilt Cash, that would convert into 1,500 points. But so $30 of Bilt Cash is equal to 1,000 points. That's the ratio to keep in mind. Because we earn $60 of Bilt Cash here, that is going to get us 2,000 points. So $1,500 of non-rent spend, again, that earned us 3,000 points initially at that 2x earning rate. Plus, we're unlocking 2,000 points on our rent because we can have up to 3,000 points on rent. So we're unlocking 2,000 points, not the full 3,000, but 2,000 points on that by taking our Bilt Cash and converting it into that 2,000 points. So now from this $1,500 of non-rent spend, you get 3,000 points earned plus 2,000 points unlocked. That's 5,000 points in total. And if you do the math on that, again, this is where I said earlier in the video to disregard earning points on your mortgage or your rent. Just think of that as a whole separate thing. Now, if we just pretend like, okay, that's gone. We're not earning points on rent or mortgage. We're unlocking extra points based on our non-rent spend. So now 5,000 points earned in total for only $1,500 of non-rent spend. That works out to be 3.33 points per dollar. And that math holds true no matter what your non-rent spend ends up being. So you're not penalized by not spending. Essentially, everybody was worried online that, you have to spend 75% of your rent or your mortgage expense on non-rent spend in order to offset the fees, the transaction fees. That's not the case. If you come up short like this and you don't have enough Bilt Cash to essentially, pay off all the fees that would be associated with this rent payment, you'll unlock 2,000 points here, but any excess rent will just be a normal bank transfer. Like you're not going to get charged the transaction fee on that. So there's a few ways to kind of look at this. Again, you're not earning the same 1x point on all rent and all mortgage spend, but now it's going to be based on your non-rent spend. So again, my initial impressions here are just that I think the old way of earning points on your rent with Bilt is gone. That's in the past. That used to make sense for anybody out there. You can easily recommend a no annual fee card that lets you unlock earning points on your largest expense, and those points are very valuable. But now in this new Bilt 2.0 program, those points are still just as valuable, but the mechanism for earning those points is what gets complicated here. And I think that is, again, going to be a big hurdle for Bilt to overcome moving forward. Now, we're still in a period here where essentially we're transitioning over from Bilt 1.0 to Bilt 2.0, and so the card itself actually becomes active on February 7th, and up until then, up until January 30th, you can make your selections and get the new card shipped out to you, or you can cancel your account. You can also choose what you want to do with your old Wells Fargo account, if you want to keep that as a Wells Fargo autograph card or just close that account as well. But so I think over time here, we're going to see more and more just how Bilt delivers this mechanism news to people inside the app. Like how are they going to explain for the average person how earning points on your mortgage or rent now works? Because there's multiple currencies. There's a points currency, a cashback currency, and that's cool. That cashback also gives you options, and I think that's something that people aren't talking that much about. That could have some dollar for dollar value outside of exchanging that Bilt Cash for unlocking points on your rent or mortgage. Again, I said before, you could use that Bilt Cash potentially for other things. So I think that's going to be another factor that we have to see kind of at work here. Is Bilt going to give us a lot of options for redeeming that Bilt cash if we want to just ignore earning points on a rent or mortgage? And so to summarize here, again, the program went from being a no-brainer program to a brainer program. That's not a bad thing for certain people who want to optimize. I think I'm actually going to get a lot of value out of the Palladium card being my new catch-all card. But essentially what made Bilt Bilt and what got everybody excited about the stuff, earning points on rent with no transaction fees, no catches, no complications, anything like that, that's no longer here. And so we have to adapt, and that's kind of like everything in the credit card world. I've made videos about this before. I think a lot of people have credit card fatigue with all these updates and the complexity of things, that people just want simplicity over anything else. And so obviously we've had a lot of changes in the credit card world over the past 12 months. We've seen Capital One Venture X lose its guest policies on lounge access. That's kind of like a minor, small little change there. But then we've seen the Amex Platinum maybe have a few more changes that people kind of expected. Some people were upset, some people not so much. Chase Sapphire Reserve had a bunch of changes. That was a dramatic reimagining of that card, and so people were more upset about that. And now with this new Bilt 2.0 program, I think that's why people are the most upset, is just because it went from one thing to something completely different. Now it's very focused on your non-rent spend, whereas before people were, there's a whole joke, people would just put 4 bananas and their rent on that credit card to qualify for earning points on their rent. You can't do that anymore. That freebie is kind of gone. But like I said, I'm really just trying to show you both sides here, both the good and the bad. There's some potential value that's there. We're gonna see how that plays out over time. We're gonna see if Bilt adjusts anything over time. So I know they're actively looking at what people are saying on Reddit and saying on YouTube and social media. So if there is any feedback, be sure to leave it down below. Comment on my videos, other videos, comment on Instagram, on Reddit. They're looking through all this stuff, and so the feedback is very much appreciated. And it is nice having that open line of communication to Bilt. So I do appreciate that. I do appreciate them inviting creators out so we can share what our audiences are saying with them. So let me know in the comments section down below what you think of these changes. Are you gonna be getting rid of Bilt? Are you gonna be migrating over to one of those 3 cards with the blue, obsidian, or palladium card? And overall, do you see this as a net positive or a net negative thing? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts because there's a lot of stuff going on. Like I said, just my initial thoughts here, trying to give you both the positives and the negatives and see it from both sides. That's what I always try to do here on this channel. So make sure to subscribe down below to see my full detailed review video of these new Bilt cards. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.